Welcome back to the Other Side 45 podcast. I am your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family cycles and trauma, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single mother of Gen Z. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. This podcast is about Women's History Month. Um, and since it is Women's History Month, I want to talk about some of the women throughout my life who had an impact on it and made me the woman that I am today. Okay. So if you have never listened to any of my episodes before, I grew up in a cult and it was very, very strict religious atmosphere, therefore very pro patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system that what they believed in is what they called the headship arrangement. We didn't call it the patriarchy. That is something I have grown to know now is patriarchy, but it was called the headship arrangement, which meant that the man was in the head of his wife and family, and he led every aspect of the family, religiously and in their personal life. So that's how I grew up. I never liked it. I thought it was horrible. It made me feel less than a person because I knew that if I were to get married, then I would have to relinquish all of who I am to some man and listen to whatever he says. And I really did not like that. Now, despite growing up in this headship patriarchy arrangement, my mother did not adhere to such things. So I did see that it actually was not something that worked or that we lived by in theory. She believed it, but she made all decisions. And so um, I just thought she was wrong. I thought based on what the teachings were, she shouldn't have been doing that. And I thought that my stepfather was just allowing her to because of whatever reason. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. The same with my grandmother. My grandparents had a very hands-off relationship. So I think technically she believed in the patriarchy, but I never saw them making decisions. I never saw him making decisions for the household. I never actually saw anything that gave me an indication that she believed in it and that's how their marriage was. Never saw any indication of that. My grandfather worked and gave my grandmother the money, and maybe that's what worked for them. I don't know. But because it's Women's History Month, I really want to focus on the women who've had, like I said, played a part in my life. That would include both of those people, my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother, if you've ever listened, if you haven't, I absolutely adore and love my grandmother. She is a strong woman. I admire her resilience. I admire what she has done. And she will always hold a special place in my life. And I am very grateful that she is still with us and I'm still able to learn from her. Now, my mother, on the other hand, if my mother and I have never had a really good relationship, even growing up, and we absolutely do not talk now. But I appreciate some of the things that she did teach me. She wasn't horrible all the time. It was not always bad. And I appreciate some of those good times and some of the things that I learned from her and things that I learned what to do. She was very pro be independent. My mother was very, very, very pro being independent. And I've told this story before on my podcast, her saying, never, ever be in a position where you can't take care of yourself and the man has all the control. I'm a very, very excited, happy that she taught me that at a very young age. And that's something that I took and taught my children who are both Gen Z, young, 22, 23 years old. Anyway, but there were other women in the cult who did what they thought they were supposed to do in bringing up young women in the congregation and trying to be that older sister, hey, a good example for them. Even though I didn't agree with what they were saying, I knew where they were coming from even then. And especially now, I understand now. I understood then where they were coming from. They thought they were doing the right thing. And I'm not saying, well, I am saying that they were not, because I didn't believe in that mess even back then. But I know that what they thought they were doing was the right thing. And I appreciate that. I remember going to their homes after services, and they would go all out, taking care of everyone, making sure everything was just right, making sure that they were great hostesses, great entertaining. It was a happy time, and I enjoy. There were things about being in the cult that I actually enjoyed, and I have some of those sisters, some of those women who push this patriarchal foolishness to thank for that. Okay, everybody can't be right all the time. Just kidding. That was true. So I want to thank and honor those women to this Women's History Month 2024. Now I want to talk to you about nowadays and something that happened at work on International Women's Day. Okay, so I have a TikTok video where I talk about the books that I got for Black History Month, which was last month in February 2024, and that I was looking at purchasing and reading books that centered women for the theme of Women's History Month. Now, that's something new that I've decided to do, is if I can't think of anything to read, I may pick up a book or two if there's something going on that month. Like for December, I got a Christmas book. For February, there was Black History Month, and then I got a little smut read for Valentine's Day. And now March, I am reading and learning about women. And these are books centered by women, written by women. And so at my job, my coworker, I have 3 jobs. So my coworker comes in at one of my jobs, won't say which, doesn't really matter. You'll know these people anyway. And she says, "Hey, happy International Women's Month." Now, at the time, I thought she was being sincere because that's all she said. And she seemed excited about it. And, I say the same to her. And our male coworker, he was like, whatever. And he has a little smirk on his face, but I'm not surprised. And so as she started talking about it, her husband and whatnot, with International Women's Month, I could tell that she wasn't very sincere when she said it. And it was more like, oh, yeah, it's International Women's Month. Women's Day. Ha, ha, ha. Fake foolishness. So when I realized that, I thought, you know what? It's Friday. Why not? Let's go down this with her. Okay? Because I felt like it. So when I realized that this was more of a joke to her than her actually wishing me happy International Women's Day, I said, well, let's just go with this. So I ended up telling her, oh, you know what? I had completely forgotten about it. I went and have all these books that I want to read that centers women, written by women. And so, you could tell that both of them completely switched. And I was like, oops, this ain't going the way we thought. It's not. You're dealing with me. So I tell him about the books, and this fool, the young man, he says, I got a book for you. Not that I asked. And I should have said that, but it was International Women's Day. I wasn't going to go there. And plus, he's really not worth it. So he says, Little Women. And both of them start laughing. I was like, that's not funny. You're an idiot. But I didn't call him an idiot, but I was thinking it. But it's International Women's Day, so I was going to behave. And I was in my place of employ. So then I walk away from those two, and I wished other women in the office a happy International Women's Day. And then one of the people who I know says, I'm not an international woman. Didn't say you were, sis. So I said to her, International Women's Day has nothing to do with you being an international woman. That don't even make sense. I said it is to show that this particular day is international. It's not national like most days are national me in the U.S. Okay. And of course, like I said, she knew that. She was just trying to be funny. Don't be funny with me. Not when it comes to stuff like this. And it wasn't like I was upset or anything. It's just, if you're going to come back with me with something, at least make it make sense. Don't make this easy for me. Let's put up a fight here. But, nonetheless, it's not a big deal to me if there are men or women who think that this is a joke holiday, because it's not a real holiday. You're not buying women gifts. I mean, I guess you could, but it is something that I do acknowledge and recognize in different ways this year, being reading books that center women by women. That's how I honor the month. Whether you do or not, that's on you. Really don't freaking care. So in that, I also want to talk about how I show up as a woman who is a feminist. One of the ways that I show up as a feminist woman who is deconstructing Christianity and who's moved away from religion and definitely the freaking patriarchy. I try to show up as a woman who believes that as a feminist, how you live your life, as long as it's in a healthy way, in a consensual way, is your freaking business. So I know women who are in the patriarchy and are completely happy, at least they tell me they are. And I know women who aren't married, who want to get married and live this patriarchal life where there's this headship foolishness, and they look forward to it because that's what they've been indoctrinated to believe. And although they aren't there yet, they welcome the opportunity to be led by some fool. I mean, man, I mean, husband, whatever. Anyway, then I have friends who are married, happily married, who husbands are not looking for free labor called wife, and who treat their wives and who have a healthy, balanced relationship with their wife, and they're happily married, have been so for years. So I've seen the gamut of all of it. I've seen both sides of it. I've seen happy single women, unhappy single women who just can't wait to be next. And I respect all of that as long as you're happy, except the ones who are unhappily waiting to be next. I feel for you. Matter of fact, speaking of which, I have been asked multiple times about me being single and if I'm looking to get married. Now, what I don't like about hypothetical situations, and I don't like people asking me hypothetical questions, is it is based purely on how you think and how you feel, and it's not based on what's going on. So if you ask me today, would I ever get married? I'm going to say, heck freaking no. And if you were to ask me that in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 2 days, 3 weeks, and I have somebody who I care for in that way, and that's what they wanted, I cannot necessarily say that I would not change my mind, but I know that I wouldn't want to. So there would have to be a talk about that. There would have to be a discussion for me to decide whether or not it would be worth it for me to participate in this thing called marriage. Now, I understand that being married does not necessarily mean that you participate in the patriarchy. Like I said, my mother did not do such a thing, and neither did my grandmother. And I know women who do not, and who are happily married, or at least married. I don't know if they're happy, whatever. So I get this question so many times, you guys. It is... And I can't even say, oh, only white men, only white black women. I have been asked this by every nationality, both genders, non-binary people, and I get it. I get why. I know why. When you see someone who's single and you care for that person, you like that person, it's usually coming from a good place, and they're like, oh my God, you're such a good, you should get married. Or, and matter of fact, one of my coworkers at one of the 3 jobs said, would you ever get married? No, what he said was, and he says he's Hispanic. What he said was, it is my hope for you, and I pray for you, because he's religious and he knows that I am not. He's Jewish. And he said, I pray, and he was talking to me and another coworker that both of us are divorced and have children, grown children. And he said, I pray and hope that the two of you find somebody and get married. And she and I looked at each other like she can't stand her ex-husband. She was like, I don't think so. No, thank you. And she's a white woman. I knew he was coming from a good place. And I said, why would I do that? I said, no, that's not something I'm interested in. I was very polite because he's a very sweet guy and older gentleman. I really like him. And he was like, you don't want to get married? And she was like, absolutely not. And so he asked me, and I said, listen, you know I don't believe in the patriarch, and I know he does. I said, so I really don't think that remarriage is a thing that I want to look forward to. So then he mentioned something about being happy. I said, listen, I'm already happy. So why would I risk my happiness for some fool? He may interrupt all my dang on peace. That I don't know if I want to risk it. And we had a good laugh. I was half joking. But what's interesting is, and I know I've been indoctrinated to the point where I cannot fathom seeing myself in a relationship that doesn't somehow touch base, slide next to, adjacent to the patriarchy. And I know that's a me thing. I just got finished saying that I know there are women who do not participate in the patriarchy and they're in absolutely happy, healthy relationships. But I cannot fathom that. I don't even see that in my future, that if I were to align myself with a male person, that he not want to be some way, shape, form, slide near, close to the patriarchy, and I would be very angry. I can't see that. And I when I was talking to my girlfriend about it some time ago, and I mentioned it to her because I had never really thought about it on that level, and I was like, I really just can't see myself being happy with a man. I can't see it ending well. And she was like, oh my God, Tanika, that's so sad. I said, I know that it's possible. I just don't think it's probable. And so when I am asked, when I think about aligning myself with some male person, the first thing that comes to my mind is this person may interrupt my peace. And I do not want to risk that. And so I know that's a me problem. That's something that I have to work on, because I understand, know, acknowledge, and realize that not all men are created equal. And there are going to be some good men out there who don't want to use me for free labor, who don't want to cook, cleaner, bottle washer. They're going to be men who respect who I am as a woman and would not ask those things of me. Because first of all, you ain't going to get past 2 sentences with me if you believe in that foolishness. If you make it past that to the point where you want to align yourself with me past a couple of days and into months and years, then you will not be somebody who believes in the patriarchy. At least don't, and at least not willfully saying in my face, because I'm very vocal about that. So if it were even to come down to that, it would have to be somebody who knows how I feel and is okay with that. But even under those circumstances, I never see in my mind's eye that ending well for me. And that is something I have to work on. And I usually am very proud of the progress that I've made since deconstructing and leaving and being the type of woman that I am today. But I will say this. This is one of those things at my big 49 years that I still need to work on, because aligning myself with a male person actually gives me pause and makes me not want to have anything to do with it. And it has nothing to do with my ex-husband, believe it or not. It has everything to do with what I've heard, seen, and grew up to believe. And also probably a little bit of that thinking that I actually don't deserve anything other than the foolishness that's been put out there. I don't know. What I do know, again, is that I need to work on that and be more open, because I do have a very narrow view of relationships. My daughter and I was talking about this when we was watching Love is Blind the other day. It's if you never heard of it, it's on Netflix. It's smut TV. It's absolutely ridiculous. But we were talking about it, and I was having some of the negative comments about it, and I thought to myself, geez, you sound so bitter. And she was like, yeah, you kind of. And when I actually said it out loud, and I asked her, I said, do you think I sound bitter? And she said, yeah. And I was like, man, I really got to work on that, because I don't want to be that person. So this Women History Month, I want to think about those women both on both sides of the patriarchy, those who believe in, those who won't have anything to do with it, front, and say, no freaking way. I want to take a page out of all of them and understand that not all men are horrible creatures. And that even though I'm not really open to dating right now, because I'm not, just so you know, that is not where I'm going. I don't want to date right now. I like who I am and I like where I am. But I also know I have jaded views of men that I personally need to address before I even open up that door to invite somebody into my life. And so not all of my episodes are going to end with me being proud of who I am. In some instances, I am. On this particular thing, I am not. And so there's some work to do. And despite the work that I still need to do, I still feel wholehearted with and I stand 10 toes deep on my theme song for my life by Mary J. Blige, Just Fine. Because I still do like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life. I ain't worried about it if you feel it. Got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. Now I want to say I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. What I mean by that is I don't necessarily think my life is perfect and I can't improve. What I mean is I have no regrets. I think regret is a useless emotion and I refuse to partake in that. Anywho, meet me on the other side of 45 podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and sometimes TikTok, which is mostly going to be my book top. If I can get this recording right and figure out what I'm doing wrong, I'm going to try to keep recording and release new episodes on Monday and fitness episodes on Friday. I am having some issues. Not really sure if I just need to move to another platform. Really hope this thing uploads. But thank you so much for tuning in. And please rate this podcast 5 stars so others can find it. It helps me grow my podcast when I can get it uploaded properly. So your feedback and support is definitely gratefully appreciated. And if you would like to share your story, please email me at host at theothersideof45.com, or you can reach me on any of my social media platforms, and we will make it work. Until next time.